Europe goes to the polls next week, but what should markets look out for? Well, Sarah and Nina are here to discuss that. Sarah, it's European parliamentary elections next week. What are you looking out for?
Euro-scepticism, and that seems to be the main theme. This vote is seen as sort of a bellwether of how European voters think the politicians have handled the financial crisis. Some are fed up with 4 years of austerity, lots of bailout packages, and this is likely to be reflected in the vote. So out of the 751 seats, the forecast is saying around 200 of them will actually go to the Euro-skeptics. So this will be a pretty big block in the parliament if it goes like this.
And does that make much difference to, say, ECB policy? I mean, you know, if it's a sceptical parliament, will that have an effect on Euro policy?
Well, I think this is more the signaling of the Europeans wanted to raise their voice and say this is probably enough. But a lot of these small fractions of Eurosceptics, they don't agree.
Yeah.
So for all of them to come together in the parliament and have one single vote is actually quite unlikely. So they'll probably more be like vocal debaters rather than actually having any impacts on the decisions.
Okay. Back to our normal ground of data, and I think the big thing next week really is Eurozone PMIs. Is that right, Nina?
We did have a disappointing outturn in the first quarter in terms of GDP, so these will really help set the tone in terms of how the second quarter will shape up. We had a lot of divergence with the first quarter GDP, France performing quite poorly and Germany performing pretty well.
Yeah.
So what's interesting
France
is
basically not growing at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's stagnated. So what's interesting is with the manufacturing PMI data from last month, actually all of the European economies surveyed were above that 50 mark in expansion territory. So hopefully signs emerging of some sort of broad-based recovery emerging for the second quarter after that first quarter disappointment that we saw in the last couple of days.
Okay, fine.
But I think what's important with this data is there's been so much talk over the last 10 days that the ECB could act at the June meeting. So everyone will be looking to see if this data is weak enough to further push the ECB into that easing territory.
Okay, as you said there, the ECB has been meeting, but also the Bank of England and the Fed have been meeting soon, and we'll get some minutes this week. We'll get to hear a bit more about what they've been thinking. Is that right?
Yeah, there's both the FOMC minutes and the Bank of England minutes, and actually both of them could be quite dull.
Right.
The FOMC is pretty much in cruise control in terms of tapering, so we probably won't see too much in those minutes. And with the Bank of England, we just had the inflation report, so it's unlikely we'll see anything too different from that.
Yeah, I think in terms of the FOMC minutes, it's more of a case of when Fed fund rates might start to increase and looking on any commentary around that.
All right. Maybe a bit of a non-event, but more exciting maybe, Vodafone next week. Should we dial into what they've got to say?
Well, that's up to you, but they have their fourth quarter results next week, and we're expecting to see some improvement in mobile service revenue trends as regulatory pressures have sort of eased a bit in Germany, and also some improvement coming through from Southern Europe as well. But consensus expectations vary quite significantly in terms of Vodafone because consolidation effects, people aren't too sure how much of an impact that will have in Vodafone's numbers, and also what impact Project Spring, Vodafone's investment program, how much of an impact that will have in terms of numbers as well. So it's one to watch in the coming months.
Okay, and there's been a lot of M&A in the telecom sector recently, so it'll be interesting to hear if they've got anything to say about that too. Okay, thanks very much, guys.